Are we live?
What's up, everybody? 8:30 o'clock. 8:30 o'clock. 8:30. September 4th.
O'clock.
It's Wednesday. And breaking news: Nebraska is very, very back. Very back. All the way back. I said it last week that we'd be back. We're even more back than we were in the preseason because now we've played a game and we are very, very back. Tonight is going to be just a wave of emotions that I need to get off my chest because I've just been listening to podcasts and watching highlights for 7 straight days, whatever.
Over and over.
I mean, I've watched the game 3 times now. I basically have the plays memorized. Like I'm like Connor Stallions, just like I just got it. It's all in the brain. So we got to dive in. We have so much to get into. Let's talk about a word from our sponsors. You guys need to check out Pipeline Jerky, pipeline-jerky.com. Make sure you get yourself a bag of the honey barbecue or a bag of the beef jerky, the original peppercorn beef jerky. And every bag supports the offensive line, who is playing outstanding last Saturday. They played well. These boys are they're playing well. And always, go to HuskGuysStore.com. We've got awesome swag. We got some merch. Holy moly, man, women, and child. We've got some Husker gear. We've got, lifestyle stuff, some unbelievably good stuff. And also, major announcement, we are coming to the Colorado game. We will be there. We've got a tailgate. We've got some awesome stuff going on with Omaha Steaks, Pipeline Jerky, and HuskGuys. We're going to be giving out stuff. Hit us with a DM if you're interested in saying what's up. We'll be around, I don't even know what we should call that parking lot, but we'll be there. So, got to get that out of the way because we got to talk about how back we are. We are so back.
That was the best Saturday I've had in like a decade.
So there's
non-football Saturdays. There's
a lot going on. There's a lot going on because everyone's doing the it's just UTEP and it's act like you've been there before. We haven't been there before.
Well,
it's been a very long time. We haven't been 1-0 in 5 years. So
5 years is a while.
This feeling of 1-0 is magical. We celebrated all weekend, but it wasn't just 1-0. It was like the way we were supposed to go 1-0, right? So this was an empty the bench in the second half. This was starters out. The defense only played 41 total snaps. It's like the first line D. So this was the winning a game you're supposed to win. So I guess I start with that because I've been seeing a lot of chatter and there's a lot of it's just UTEP. Guys, we lost to Troy 2 years ago. Okay? So, let's just enjoy our wins and let's feel the vibes all the way back. So we're back. I mean,
my 4.5-year-old Lucy this is the first time she's started 1-0 since we've been alive. Or since she's been alive.
It hasn't been to a bowl game yet, but that will change this year. There's a lot changing.
Just insane. I feel great though. I mean,
there's another
awesome. Let's dive in.
Very small story that came out of the game, and that was that we have a once in a generation talent at quarterback.
God, say more.
I mean, what? Say more. I think so. Here's where we got to kind of work through some stuff. I've been throwing out some very strong extremes with him.
Yes, you have. I've heard some.
Yeah, so I need to kind of be reined back in, but I also want to talk about it in context. So some sample texts for those who are not on my direct text chains involved. This is the best player that's stepped foot in Lincoln in 25 years. I don't know. I don't know if that's right. The best quarterback we've ever seen, maybe outside of Tommy Frazier. We had some dramatic things. I've now come back from that, and I've been like, I don't know. Adrian was pretty good. Tommy Armstrong was pretty good. Taylor Martinez had some good stuff going on. The difference to me is he's a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just I think we've seen it all spring, and we've seen it a lot in the summer and the fall. The way that he carries himself and the moxie and the confidence and the swagger and the calm in the pocket and the way that he stands there under pressure like it's nothing. That to me was I think everybody saw it was oh my gosh. No happy feet, calm, throws lasers like the Patrick Mahomes throws. We'll get into all these plays, but that's obviously the headline coming out of this is, we got Zach Taylor and Joe Gans. Thank you. Yeah, those guys, hey.
Good.
I appreciate
Serviceable.
that. Yeah,
great.
Appreciate that. I mean, they've all been good.
The difference is
different. It's different.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is going to be shown, I think, more a little bit this weekend, of course. But for game one, you know, an 18-year-old stepping on in, like he's walking out of the tunnel. It started with the tunnel walk.
He's feeling it.
I mean, the guy is just bringing some juice.
He's
And
feeling
he's
it.
like absolutely feeling it. He did not shy away from the bright lights. He actually performed on the big stage like we thought that he might. And then, again, the difference, I guess, is like it's one thing to have a cannon for an arm, like Spencer Rattler, good example. Cannon for an arm, struggled big time, was supposed to be an absolute phenom. He's going to maybe end up on an NFL roster and whatever. But like that's an example of someone that just struggled a little bit to kind of get going. And it took a little bit later in the career for Rayola to just come out like true freshman game one and, not really turn the ball over, make smart decisions, throw the ball away as needed, hit some and just unleash the cannon of an arm that he has at the right times. That was huge. It was absolutely huge to see.
I want to talk about the game itself. So one of the things I was thinking about, and I know Dad's listening, our father is listening. We're brothers for those just tuning in.
Good.
And one of the things, so he'll appreciate this. You'll appreciate this. Perhaps others will as well.
Yeah.
You'll remember anytime we either sit down and watch a game with him or sit next to him in a game, after the first snap, he has that like either the sigh or the like, or he does the like, like one of those.
Yep.
Snap. And it drove me nuts as a kid because I was like, Dad, you can't just give up after the first play. This is crazy. Like it's a long, it's a 4.5 hour football game. There's 90 plays left. But the first snap, he always, he's watched every Nebraska game back to 58, 59 since birth. But this game, we came out in that first play, and it was like I think it was like an 8-yard gain up the middle, and just they blew a massive hole, knocked him like back, and I did the like dad like, okay,
interesting. Yeah,
I was literally like at that moment, I was like, we're gonna win this game, and I don't know what it was. There was just some like there felt like a different push from these guys. In particular on the offensive line, like we have 4 running backs, we can get into those guys, 4 guys that were rotating in, and each of them was contributing. And I think I think there's a big push up front. There was some excitement on the outside, but that first push in particular, I don't know. Did you feel that on the first drive?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing that stood out was Dowdell was getting the majority of the work on the first string there, and he looked actually pretty good. Like he looked explosive. He looked pretty powerful. And they were an overmatched opponent, but like we have historically in the last 5 years or so not blown people off the ball like we are supposed to do. So yeah, I mean, it was great to see us establish the run early, and then starting from the first drive, having a ton of success and stuff there.
All right, folks, we're gonna try this. This is our first attempt at a live video, but we got to show this. So this is on the first drive, and this was that first kind of wow play. So as you're going through it, right, we had the this is from the 40-yard line. This is, for those not watching, this is Rayola's incompletion.
They can taste something going on. Now he loads up. It's a deep ball, and it is nearly brought in. It's incomplete.
But he drops this thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect throw.
It was the best incompletion we've ever had.
50 yards in the air, but that was like the first one, and like the crowd, you could feel it through the TV. It was like they wanted that touchdown so bad. It would have absolutely like broken the stadium. And even just like it was an effortless throw from the 45 all the way down to the goal line, just a little bit past Naor, but like he was right there, burned the guy. And I think that was like, the first snap, I was like, okay, the offensive line's ready. And this play, I was like, wow, this rail is special. Like that is a effortless throw to a wide open guy who broke free. That was kind of the first play that I was like, all right, this could be something good.
Yeah. I mean, just like raw arm talent. Like I know that we've just been waxing on this kid for a while, but he might have the best, like just raw, untrained, has not been, through a college season yet. Just the best raw arm talent we've seen maybe since, Tommy Armstrong had an absolute bazooka. Like Casey could throw it, but he was a 6-year senior. Zach Taylor could sling it. Same with Joe Gans and stuff. But all those guys had some experience, like coming right out of high school. He is dropping nukes, and it is it's pretty entertaining. I don't know if the position's completely fixed. I don't want to, get too far ahead of myself, but I'm ready to if we.
It feels that I think like the feeling around the program, and it's like the wide receivers, you can kind of see them have a little giddy up in their step, like Banks and they're like, okay, we've got a guy that can get us the ball. You can kind of feel like just a little bit more confidence around him, which I think builds up everybody else. But here's what I kind of want to talk through is so it wasn't like the best first half. It was a great game, but that first touchdown drive was awesome. Just a 12 play, 5 minute, 72-yard drive that was like right down their throats, converted on a 2nd and 30. That's where he had, effortlessly completed one pass and then did the Patrick Mahomes throw. Ends up in a touchdown. So we're 7-0. They punt 3 and out, done. But then we went, 7 plays and downs. So it was like good, not great. And, it's to be expected, right? So we go downs. They go touchdown, which was bizarre. So let's talk about that for a second, because that was 3 plays, blown coverage, bizarre play because it was very out of characteristic of the team. It is concerning because we have probably the 2 best wide receivers we're going to play all season coming to town next weekend. So what do you think happened with that?
Yeah, I think it's a play that Hartzog would kind of like back. He got beat by a couple of steps, and then he was trying to make up some ground, and then he turned around and basically just completely lost his footing and stuff there. He made up for it later. Ended up getting a pick. The collective groan is the thing that needs to be addressed, because it was like oh God, here we go. They're tied. They were jumping on the sideline, waving towels. Their 34-year-old coach is like acting like a frat boy out there, like that he just did a keg stand or something, and they're just waving things around like they had the juice at that moment. And then we fumble.
No, so it went they scored a touchdown, then we went 3 and out.
Oh, then so they had all the momentum there.
So we went from beautiful touchdown to turnover on downs to punt. It was turnover on downs. They scored a touchdown. Then we punted. They punted back to us, and then we put together a great drive. And now we're at the Dowdell fumble.
Ends in a Dowdell fumble, and that was probably the one big glaring offensive error that stuck out. I don't even know that he got a carry or a touch after that.
Did he not?
But he will in the future. But Dowdell was running great before then. I think Rule probably wanted to set a little bit of an example. Say, all right, you dropped the ball, you're sitting on the bench. However, this was one of the greatest game-changing fumbles, apparently, of all time in our favor, as we ended up getting a safety, and then they did not score a single point after that.
Yeah, it was over from there, and I think that's going to be a trend.
Response is the lesson. I think, for me, it's like you can imagine a past team fumbling the ball. We're in the red zone. We're knocking on the door. Fumble it, and all of a sudden, it's just like, all right, the defense comes out flat. They drive and go, say they go up 10-7, 14-7, completely different ball game. Instead, the exact opposite happened, and we scored on defense. And then it was just pedal to the metal, knife to the throat.
Yeah.
And it was over after we, honestly, after we got the safety. Yeah, I had no more concerns.
Yeah,
we were just moving the ball so easily.
I just think you have 3 straight drives that didn't end up in any points. The fumble was, he fumbled on the 5-yard line, or almost any of them. But then finished the half touchdown. So turned it around, and it became a blowout from there. And I think it's going to be a trend, hopefully, because you kind of saw a little bit of it last year, where the defense steps up and makes a play, whether it's like the Illinois, fourth and goal stop that turned that game around, or some of the other big plays like the special teams play against Purdue. I think hopefully the defense is able to stand up to plays like that. I think there's those 3 drives are the only ones that give me pause for Colorado. I felt great about the whole game. We dominated line of scrimmage. We had 4 running backs who were running really well. We have great wide receivers. But there was enough plays in those first 3 drives. It was shoot, I don't know. There's some issues there.
Yeah, I mean it was interesting to see Rayola also take it up a notch in that second quarter, like after that, and not just Rayola, but the whole wide receiver core was just like, all right, we're just gonna out talent you and put on a little bit of a show here. The second quarter, Rayola was 8 for 12 passing, for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. All right, so all of that happened after the fumble.
We're gonna watch this one.
8 for 12.
Second down, he'll throw it again. Pressure got there. He's going to go deep ball down the sideline again. Oh, man, did he drop it in? Good
God. God.
There was even people
like a guy in his face.
Yep.
So this is the Nair touchdown pass. Guy in his face. He's on the far 40.
Even with somebody a big old
Drops it right in
This
there.
gets you.
I mean,
This gets you a Patrick Mahomes shout out warranted.
yeah, I just think it was and that wasn't even, that was one of 5 gorgeous throws that he had on the day. So, that was the beginning. And then I think the other one that a lot of folks are getting excited about too is he ran the 2-minute drill at the end of the half. So right at the end of the half, we take over the ball with 2:03, which we have a 2-minute warning now, which is like, I'm still trying to get used to that. In every game I was watching, it was like, they don't call it, what do they call it? 2-minute like timeout or something weird. But he got the ball with 2:03.
Yep.
Marched down the field perfectly, which is something that, I mean, God, I think back to every one of those Scott Frost teams where it was like, this is hopeless. Like, we have no chance of like a 2-minute drive. There's just never going to happen. And that ended in the Jamal Banks fantastic jump ball that he went up and got, which was awesome. I think Banks is a big time target, a big time wide receiver. I think Nayor clearly has a little extra giddy up than most of the guys. So that was that's the end of the half, and then your game's over.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was awesome to see us just kind of finish things off early and leave a little bit, of some breathing room going into the half there. I loved that we were taking end zone shots and stuff at that point as well. Another play you may have seen would be, let's run the ball and kick a field goal. But he put that thing on an absolute rope, and scoring with a few seconds left was awesome. It ended up as our most balanced offense that we've seen in years as well. We had 507 yards total, but we had 11 different receivers involved. I think the other thing that I gained from the first half, because that was the more competitive half that mattered a little bit more, Rayola really likes Nair.
A lot.
He's going to him first. I thought it would be Banks, and maybe it will be in the future. He really likes Nair.
Yeah. Which is, it's good. I mean, it's good he's got a guy.
Yeah. He was double-digit targets. He had, 120 plus yards receiving. I mean, Nair is going to be a weapon.
Yeah,
and that's a big takeaway.
Hunky from the Go Big Redcast on here saying Dylan's arm strength there was insane. 45 yards without being able to step into it. Wow. I agree, Hunky, and hope to see you on Saturday if you come by. But here's 2 things I want to talk about, 2 kind of questions I had. One was Fidoni, in the usage of him, I thought was a little weird. I think they ran 2, maybe 3 screen passes to him. I just don't think he's like a screen pass guy. And maybe he is. He just doesn't really have that lateral movement. But him, I feel like they weirdly utilized him there. But if he gets incorporated into the offense, that to me is something that I haven't even used, right? Most of the big plays were just the 2 guys. What do you think of how they used him?
Yeah, I mean, he had some unfortunate perimeter blocking that was happening, I guess, there too. He had 3 receptions for 1 total yard.
Yeah.
So they were clearly trying to game plan to him and get him the ball. The only other tight end that had a catch was Lyndon Meyer in the second half. But I think I'm a big fan of just get your playmakers the ball. He's gonna do something big against Colorado and stuff, and we know it. And I just think that I think that he's going to be used a little bit more over the middle and stuff in the future. But you get him the ball, you just watch what he does with it. He's a monster. He's a beast. Get him the ball anywhere that you
I just think that he did so well last year in those short crossing routes, as well as the out routes that get the first downs and he can go up and get it. That to me is where he's probably better suited, and it gets me excited thinking about Nair going deep, Banks going deep, running crossing routes, fade routes, and then he's the short guy across. And yeah, I just think it was a weird like to see him running those when I wanted to see, I wanted to see more. I was freaking Barney, man. Jeez Louise.
Yeah,
That dude's
they got him that
got
one
some,
ball on
he's got some giddy up to him.
the reverse. Yeah, I would say like in the highlights of the offense overall, just like in summarizing offense before we maybe chat defense and stuff too here. The highlights of the offense take Rayola, obviously. Nayor, definitely, at least for right now, sample size seems like weapon number one. Was surprised with Jalen Lloyd not getting many touches. That was another like takeaway for me. I think again, he's going to be a weapon, but maybe just not yet.
Did they say anything?
The other, what's that?
Did they say anything?
Coleman, so that was actually the other thing that I would take, or is a takeaway here. So Rule after the game or after a presser recently, he was like, it's nothing necessarily that he's done. I know he's a little bit banged up in scrimmage, but now they're actually looking into redshirting him. So you had 11 different people catch the ball. 11 different people catch the ball. Like, Nelson has 3 catches. Bonner had 3 catches. Banks had 4. Nayer had 6.
Bullock had a catch.
Bullock had 1. I mean, Barney, like all these guys getting involved, and Coleman not getting out there. A little bit of it from being banged up and slowed down in camp. But now we might be looking at, they only use Coleman in like 4 games, try and redshirt him and see if he can agree with that. So it was an interesting takeaway point. And then, probably the final one is the rushing game and the offensive line with just a like complete destruction of their team. I mean, that was absolutely awesome to see. We had 11 different players rush the ball as well at the end of the game, and we went for 223 yards, 4.74 yards per carry with 3 rushing touchdowns. So, I mean,
what do you think? I mean, were you surprised to see Ramir start?
I think Dowdle got the first. I think you're right that Ramir actually got the first. Yeah, and then Dowdle got like the bulk of the work.
Dowdle, I couldn't tell if it was like. I couldn't tell if it was like a nod to him for just being like a 9th year senior. It's like, hey,
he loves his older players. He loves his older players, and he does want to get Ramir his PhD and stuff. But the guy deserves it. I think Dowdle is going to be the first option here.
I thought there was.
If I had to guess.
Yeah, I like the way he ran. I think he got pretty rightfully punished for the fumble, but like he was running hard the whole game, and I'd kind of heard some of the different podcasts were talking about this on the radio, of like how he wasn't Dowdle wasn't the front runner in the spring, and I thought he looked like a little bit slower in the spring. Like he had that touchdown run, but he looked like
it looks like he was
kind of slow motion,
a wounded animal.
Yeah, he just didn't like. It was like he got there, but
like a fast wounded animal.
Yeah,
fast wounded, like a deer that caught its foot on something.
Yeah, Nick Boss said he had a Hostess NIL deal, and now he's done with the Hostess NIL deal, and now he's fast. Now he's fast again.
Great timing.
Because I thought he looked fast. I was like, oh, he's fast. He's got some cuts. He ran hard. Like he's got some giddy up. So I
just like to see that any of them were doing well. Like that to me is a better sign of like our running back room stability and stuff. I mean, it seems to me like it's going to be Dowdle. Like if you had to look at like the usage in the first half when it's you want your 1A team out there. He got most of the carries in the. But
Emmett Johnson finished with 8 for 71, including that 55-yard run. Right. Ramir finished 11 rushes, so he was up there. And then Gabe Ervin had 2 touchdowns on 6 rushes. So there's something there. Gabe to me, I'd love to see him like hit his true peak form. I feel like he's still not there, but maybe the 2 touchdowns will help him get back into form with all of his injuries. But yeah, it was an interesting.
Dowdle had 8 carries total.
Yeah,
they were all in the first half.
True.
First quarter, he had 7 carries for 6.1 yards per carry.
Yeah, he ran well. I mean, I'd be okay if he's the bell cow that they like decided to go for, but then you bring in Ramir for all the things that he's talented at, which is catching the ball in the backfield and his shake and bake everything.
Yeah, so. And then it's nice to have a Gabe Ervin come in to relieve him, and then Emmett Johnson, who many thought was going to be the starter all along. I mean, that's 4 solid backs. I love where that room is at right now.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think there's no like superstar there. That to me was that I think all 4 are good. Yep. None of them are Amir or like a huge like I'm going to give him the ball 30 times a game type guy. But the way I do think Nayor is like a borderline superstar. I mean, I think Banks is a big time player. So I think to have those guys is huge. And I think Fidoni's a superstar. So it's maybe you don't need it. Maybe you do. I think in the Big Ten, you're going to need to grind out some games. But yeah, I think, but then let's switch to defense and we can talk Colorado. What do you think of the D?
God, just the best.
Yeah.
They had one breakdown in coverage, and it is tough to find another series where you said, yeah, I'm not so sure about these guys. After they fumble, the safety that completely changed the complexion of the game. A couple of the key stats, I guess. Defensive line was, they looked all world. They completely decimated them. We barely had to blitz. They were getting a good amount of pressure, not a good amount of sacks. If you had to pick one thing to hold against them, we only ended up with one. But we had 9 tackles for loss. We had 1 safety, and 4 of our tackles for loss were from the D line. Mason Goldman got a sack, Nash and Ty combined for 4 tackles for loss between them. It's our 8th straight game holding opponents less than 400 yards. We gave up 59 yards rushing, which is a pretty phenomenal start. They had 149 yards passing, but 50 of them were on their scoring drive. So you had that one deep pass. They basically had 100 yards combined the rest of the game. And that's including our second and third stringers out there. So gotta love where they're at. My biggest concern for the D is, it just has to be the secondary. Going into Colorado week and what they were able to do against us last year. It's the secondary. It ends up still being the main concern. I think they turned things around this game. 2 picks, shut them down pretty well.
2 picks and a safety. So it's really 3 turnovers. So pretty good effort. And you look at the drive summary too. It was 3 plays, 3 and out with -1, 3 plays and a touchdown. But then they went 3 and out again, 2 plays and a safety, 3 and out, interception. That was their first half. It's pretty good first. They besides that touchdown, they could have gained more than 40 yards in the entire first half, which that feels good. To have a good defense is life changing. It reminds me back of those the 2009 teams, the Sioux years when you were just like, oh, they're not going to score. They're not going to score. Then you're just so acutely focused on the offense. If you're like, all right, we need somebody to break one, And that 2009 offense was the worst of all time. But the defense, I feel a certain level of confidence with these guys. That you're like, oh, these guys aren't going to score. Even the safety aside, I was like, they're not going to drive 98 yards against this defense. That'd be the biggest breakdown of all time.
Yeah, to me, one of the huge things that is going to give us an advantage over Colorado as well is that rush defense. We're built to stop the run. Colorado is completely unserious about running. This first game, they went 24 attempts for 56 yards, 2.33 average. Colorado basically did the exact same against North Dakota State. So our defense holding this team, inferior opponent, I get it, but they were no threat on the ground. And if we can take away a team that's no threat on the ground, it just helps your secondary and everything so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what the game plan is going to be.
Let's transition to Colorado. So
let's do it.
You watched the full game, right? Colorado versus North Dakota State.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's a clown show. They are a completely unserious football team.
I don't know how they plan on winning football games.
Well, and so here's what it definitely is. And we were texting about this, but it truly is Deion went there and is on a mission to get his son drafted. And his son he's outstanding. Shedeur is phenomenal. Deion is on a mission. He says it in every press conference. He's going to be a top 5 pick. He's going to be the number 1 quarterback taken. And he probably will be. He is extremely talented. He's very good. He is very tough. Yeah. And he's also said Travis Hunter is going to be a top 5 pick. I'm going to make sure of it. So he's going to have 2 top 5 picks purely because he's just willing them to the top of the draft class.
He's just speaking it into existence.
But it's literally you watch the game and he truly just has 2 players. You can add Jimmy Horn Jr. as a third. Yeah. But three total players, but it literally is back when we used to play, NCAA video games, and we would create ourselves as the quarterback, and you would just crank up your
99 speed,
99 throw power,
99 arm strength,
accuracy, And then you would have one wide receiver that you could throw to, and
Zero
he
awareness.
was always like the fastest guy on the team. And you're just like, I'm going to win the Heisman, and then I'm going to throw it as far as I can, and that guy's going to catch it every single time, and then I'm going to run around the outside and score and win.
Yep.
And that's literally like the way Deion is approaching college football. And then even like if you remember back in those games, you know how he would like simulate through defense. You wouldn't even play defense. Like he would just be able to hit that button and be like, oh, just simulate through. I'm just going to go back to offense. That's literally what he plays. Is he's like, just skip the defensive part. Can I just go back to my son? And I just want to like coach my son and have him play. Like,
The defense thing. This is not fun. I don't enjoy it. Let's just get this over with.
They don't have the swagger. They don't have the anything going on. We get some Clemson folks joining us saying we're CFP bound. I'd love to see that Clemson podcast.
Wow.
The folks
Thank you.
at Clemson.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that to me was like, I came out of the game, and I honestly like don't know what to think because truthfully, Travis Hunter's phenomenal. He is phenomenal. You got to tip your cap where like he played every freaking snap of the game. Nobody does that anymore. Nobody has that level of endurance. Nobody has that ability to play two sides of the ball as well as he does. 3 touchdowns. He had 100 plus yards receiving on offense. He went up and caught some ridiculous balls. Shadour's fantastic. They are very good. And they had many, many plays that they ripped apart North Dakota State. Like they were just gashing them in a lot of different plays, ton of choke yards. They scored on the first like 5, he was 5 for 5 with 2 touchdowns and 130 yards passing after the first like 2 series. So I have concerns because you're like, similar to the way we played video games, what did we do? We won all of our games and we would like win the Heisman because if you just have 3 outstanding players, you can do a lot of damage. The flip side is like where North Dakota really excelled was ball control. I mean, they controlled the ball, I think it's 80% of the first half. Like they just controlled the ball, slow clock management, and then Colorado would score super quick, and then they would control the ball. So I think that could definitely be a thing. They wore down the defense, and they had a shot, right at the end of the game. They just had the Hail Mary that fell short. But I just like this team is not serious. He's got, we've talked about it over and over again. He's got 50 new transfers. It's not a serious team, and you just cannot lose to an unserious football team.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, it's shocking that they can get away with it a little bit. But, I mean, this is how the team is built. He clearly goes out to the portal. He wants to stack his receiver room, mainly for his son, which is fine. They're playing to their strengths. They lost their top 2 rushers, and they don't even they don't care about running. It's incredible. So the breakdown for Colorado, like for me, ends up becoming it's our defensive line versus their offensive line. That's probably going to be where the game ends up being won. Like if we're looking for what is the biggest advantage, it's going to be probably both sides of the ball in the trenches. I would say the bigger situation is going to be, does our D-line basically get pressure on them like they were doing against UTEP without having to blitz linebackers? If you can drop 7, that's how you're going to end up having to stop Colorado.
Yep.
And last year, I mean, we had 8 sacks and they still got their yards. They still got over 400 yards. So that's where I'm at right now as far as like what is the one singular biggest advantage we have? Their offense versus our offense. Okay, their offense is probably, they're a little bit better than ours right now, just based on the numbers. They're a better passing team. They're not as good of a running team, but they're an elite passing team, and we think pretty good. Their defense versus our defense, it's not even close. Like our defense is night and day better. They were 124th in scoring defense in the country last year. They just got exposed by North Dakota State. They allowed 65% completion rate against quarterbacks last year and 28 passing touchdowns. They're 453 yards allowed per game in 2023. 124th in scoring defense at 34.8 points per game. 7 of their last 8 games, they have not had an interception. Like all of these things, like they have not shown signs
North Dakota State finished with 450 yards. I know North Dakota State's good, and they're probably going to win the FCS National Championship again. But 450 yards to North Dakota State is a lot of yards.
Yeah. So in terms of like, what Colorado does best, obviously it's their passing game. the concerns for me, I guess, if we're looking at specific things here, they only want to pass, and
Yep.
our secondary is, if you had to pick maybe the weak point on the team, just in comparison, our secondary versus their receivers. They were 14 of 17 on their first downs passing. They did, 17 times they had a first down.
Yeah.
They're passing the ball. They're just coming out passing. Their 256 yards passing on first down was the most of any down for them. So they just come out, they get the ball, they were passing most of the time. Their O-line improved, but it's still pretty shaky. So the advantages on when they're on offense, they're going to get their yards. They're probably going to get some of their points. I think it just comes down to, can our defensive line just man up, be absolute animalistic humans like they were, let the polar bear bite through some buffalo's heads and go to town on Shedeur. If they could do that, we can drop our defense in coverage, and we can stuff them pretty good, I think.
Yeah, and that's, it was such an interesting game to watch.
You
because
just turn it one-dimensional. Like they don't want to run.
They were
run.
Like North Dakota State had a brilliant game plan. They're extremely well coached. And I'm looking back at like their drive summary where they scored quick. So, North Dakota took up like the first 3 minutes, then Colorado got the ball, 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. And then North Dakota had this long 5-minute long drive, 10 plays, 75 yards, wore them down, touchdown. Colorado next drive, 2 plays, 75 yards, took 40 seconds. And then North Dakota State came back, 10 plays, 77 yards, 6-minute drive. So like by the end of the almost first quarter, midway through the second quarter, Shedeur only played 8 snaps. That's crazy, Yeah. And then they went 4 and out. Then they went 3 and out, then 3 and out, and then they ended up half. And so it ended up being a 2017 and a half. They ended up getting a field goal right at the end of the half there.
Yeah, they ended up. North Dakota State had the lead at half.
And were controlling the game. They had the weird interception to start. So it was. Looking at those, you're like, all right, they can score quick, but they also get frustrated. But I also think, this game followed a pretty similar trajectory to last year's game that we played that, I know we don't want to relive, but what gives me confidence is we basically shut down Shedeur last year for the first half.
Yeah.
It was 3.
Yeah, they scored on the first 4 possessions, but in the third quarter, it was 13-7. And that is despite a bajillion turnovers.
Well, I guess that's what I'm getting at is it was 3-0 with very late in the game.
In the first half.
Very late in the first half. And then was that awful Jeff Sims interception on our own 20, right? On our own 20.
Just and then peeing down our legs.
Yeah, from there they scored on the next play. And then we punted and they scored again. So we went from, it was 3-0, and then we were losing 10-0 going into the half, or 13-0 going into the half, just like that. So they can score quick. That's what concerns me about them. But what gives me confidence is the fact that we held them in check, because we sacked them 9 times last year, right? Or was it 9 or 10? Whatever it was.
Between 8 and 10, yeah.
That's crazy.
That is a lot of sacks.
10 sacks. He's a tough kid.
That's still got to be our biggest advantage. Again, if we just turn it into a one-dimensional game. What we should want to do is play Big Ten football. And if we know Matt Rule well, it's that he literally just keeps echoing a Big Ten football is a pretty specific style, and we should Big Ten them to death. That should honestly be the goal. And that's exactly what North Dakota State tried to do. I think the last thing that we want to would I like to see it? Sure. But a Rayola versus Shedeur battle and just going back and forth is not a recipe for success for us.
Don't want to do that.
And so you're going to see completely, I think, 2 different contrasting styles. You're going to see us try and line it up and do exactly what North Dakota State did and just bully ball them and control the ball and keep their offense off the field. And that is exactly why I think that we have a pretty strong advantage there. And then, again, it just comes down to our defensive line. If we can control their O-line, they're going to be a one-dimensional team, and that's going to help our defense.
Yeah, I'm all over the place on this game because we've seen the public sentiment shift very heavily in favor of Nebraska. The line is 7.5 in favor of Nebraska. the commentators are starting to come out and they're like, Nebraska's going to, exactly like we're saying, they're talking about it on like the national stage saying, Nebraska's offensive line is just going to bully their defensive line. And, a lot of folks are predicting us to win, which I don't that's stuff. I'm just a broken Nebraska fan at this point because I'm like, should be sweet. That should be awesome. Like I should be excited about that. But there's this deep down part of me that's like, we haven't been allowed to feel joy watching Nebraska football in like 15 years. So it's like, I'm like, hey, we're like so close to like turning this corner, but also like, wait, we're completely cursed and somehow we got to break this thing.
Yeah, I mean, Saturdays have been somewhat miserable at times, but we're here, we're back. Saturday was like an explosion of Kool-Aid. I mean, just a volcanic eruption that scattered across the country. And you've got everybody from Danny Cannell to Josh Pate to
Joe Klatt,
all these other Joel Klatt that are coming out and saying this Husker team is for real.
Right.
I don't know that we could say that based on one sample, but I do know that if we come out and do what we're capable of doing against Colorado, we were capable of doing it last year had we had the correct personnel.
Yeah.
If we don't shoot ourselves repeatedly in the foot, sew our foot back on, shoot it off again, we are going to be in business here. I don't think there would even be like a reason for panic. If we start turning the ball over in our own half, if we start screwing up on special teams again, if we have, Jeff Sims had 2 fumbled snaps last year, throwing interceptions, all of those things they just give Shedeur too many chances. He's an elite quarterback with an elite receiving core. They're going to throw it up and test our secondary. Hartzog's like 5'8". Like they're going to go after our secondary. We just need to limit the chances that they're going to do so.
The other massive difference is in last year's game was so insane in so many levels of. It was this, the second game of the prime era. Game day was there. Like the amount of like hype that was there. Like Snoop Dogg was there. It was, it was like Lil Wayne was there. Like, and their fans were going nuts. And it was a rabid environment. It was loud. It's here. It's here this year. So,
baby, no, yeah.
So I think
they don't beat us in our house.
Yeah, it's going to flip in that sense. And I mean, I keep looking at them like. If this
atmosphere is going to be insane,
I
will make sure of it. Personally.
I think it's going to be a top 5 atmosphere in like a top 5 game atmosphere this whole season.
Just like this is 10 years of frustration coming out in guttural screams and yells from Nebraska fans.
Which I think there's a big stage. There's a non-zero chance it ends the way that UTEP ended, like a 40-7, 40-14. Like if we play the way we can play, I think there's a very real chance.
Prediction.
But I just think there's like if you look at all these things and you look at like you're just like all these brand new transfers and like their game. Did you look at that Joel Klatt thing I sent you? Joel Klatt, just like who is a Colorado alum, ripped them and he was like, "There's no strategy to this team. There's no offensive strategy, defensive strategy. Special teams was bad. Their their clock management was bad. If you watch the end of the game, they could have just kneeled the game out and they instead threw, which
that's true, right? They gave him a chance at the Hail Mary.
He mapped out the plays and he was like, there's a minute 40 left, and if they had just run the ball up the middle 3 times, North Dakota State would have caught the ball on a punt with 3 seconds left in the game on their own 20. Instead, they caught it with like 1:20 left or whatever, so they have a full minute to drive the field and throw the Hail Mary, which they caught on the 5-yard lines. But all of those things are not like those are coaching, right? And like that's where it keeps coming back to this unserious program where like Deion has done an incredible job building up the hype for their program the same way we build up the hype for ours. Like, kudos to him. I wish we could do ours bigger than him too. But they're just not. It's not like that's where like on paper, if you were looking at this without like the Deion equation, this feels closer to a Colorado team from like 3 years ago that used to just go 2-10. Like this team's not going to a bowl game. Colorado.
I like that prediction.
Do you think they are? Watching that.
Not after I saw the North Dakota State game. They've got a pretty tough schedule in the Big 12 as well. Like other than us, I think we have to beat them for that to not be the case.
I just don't. But that team, they're not beating UCF. They're not beating Kansas State. They're not beating Arizona.
No, the other thing, just like with game management in general. So, I think I accidentally misspoke and said that Colorado scored on their first 4 possessions. I meant
No.
North Dakota last year, but North Dakota State scored on their first 4 possessions and
Correct.
led 20 to 17 and a half. The other thing, just like game management and game decision wise, like North Dakota State was moving the ball at will, converting big third downs. They went 5 for 6 passing on third downs. Their highest QBR of any down was on third downs.
Yeah.
Colorado couldn't get them off the field. And so I love our chances at like beating up their D line. I like our chances at being able to pass and stuff at will. I don't think that they're going to have an overly suppressing secondary as well. And all we got to do, you just stop the run, let them get a little bit of their yards, bend but don't break, and we are going to beat them by 1,000.
They're not even going to try to run. They're
Well,
never,
that's the thing. You just have to settle it early and just be like, all right, listen, guys, we dare you to run. It's not going to go well. Now that that's over with in the first quarter, they will run the ball 0 more
I was
times.
going to say this kid that they had, Dallin Hayden.
Yeah, he's
had
transferred from Ohio State.
9 rushes for 20 yards. He couldn't do anything.
He's their lead rusher.
He was nothing.
2.2 yards per carry.
He was
against
nothing.
North Dakota State.
Against North Dakota State. Like, he was nothing.
Yeah,
Shooter
they lost their top 2 running backs from last year.
A little kid that went to, was it K-State? He was a good player.
Yeah, Dylan Edwards gone.
Uh,
The final, I guess, like, what are the big battles you're looking forward to otherwise? That's probably the biggest thing with this is it's going to come down to
I
the
think
unit
if you
battles and
get-
the individual battles.
if you get pressure on him, he's a tough kid, and they're going to get their yards, they're going to get their touchdowns. Hunter's going to play well, all those things. I think that if we play the similar type of game as North Dakota, but like elevate the fact that we have a generational quarterback and 2 of the best wide receivers in the country, it's like it should on paper, be much better. So you'll be paying attention to that. I think. Offensive line wise, they played extremely well. I thought Benhart played extremely well as a 6-year. I feel like he's coming to our own. Like, I really like that we have this very senior laden.
Unsung hero is Justin Evans Jenkins too. Actually, he was pushing people.
But they're big guys and they're blowing big holes. And Dylan maybe got hit once. We just did what we're supposed to do. But Colorado's got a couple guys that had some sacks last week, so they're going to put probably a little bit more pressure on him.
Probably the biggest battle I think we're looking forward to is, to me, I think Tommy Hill is going to try and match up with Travis Hunter, and I think that's going to be pretty telling of the way things are going to go. And then on the flip side, we saw Fedoni absolutely manhandle Hunter a few times last year.
Right.
I would say they're probably looking forward to doing that again and running the ball and matching up a tight end just to beat the crap out of Hunter a little bit more while he's on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
Playing 120 plus snaps against us should be a tall task. Like, we need to make his life absolute hell.
Yeah, that's why he got hurt last year. It was like the team started doing what we were doing. Like, week 1 to sort of set the bar of like, all right, we're gonna have a tight end block you. Good luck. He's 100.
I think we should do that. The first 20 plays is just sick Fedoni on him.
Just runs straight at the quarterback for
absolutely demolish.
Yeah,
to Hunter.
I think that Horn kid's pretty darn good too. He was. Well, he probably had 200 yards. No, he had, looking at it now, 7 receptions for 188 yards or 198 yards and a touchdown. He's pretty darn good. And so is that kid Wester. So those guys are, they're extremely talented across all 3 of those guys. And Shedor's, he's good. I think that's kind of like one of the only other parts that I was trying to like rein in my Raiola hype of like, we are just so. And I'm looking at this comment I just put up here. I've been a Husker fan since 2016. This whole good football thing is new to me. Is I think something that's like so relevant because we haven't seen a quarterback like Raiola really ever, but we haven't seen good football in such a long time that I'm like, all right, is it just because we haven't seen good football and he's better than everything we've had? Like, way better Jeff Sims. Like, Casey Thompson could spin it a bit, but he's not as natural as Dylan and any other guys. Adrian and Tommy just don't seem to have that extra hit factor. But I did look, across the country, like There are a lot of really good quarterbacks. Shador's one of them. Like that kid Nico from Tennessee is extremely good. Dylan Gabriel's, very strong. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks out there, but I'm just glad we got one because I think it changes the entire complexity of the game.
Yeah.
Really, if you're looking at last year's game to this year's game, they're going to get their yards, they're going to do all this stuff, but we don't have like one of the biggest liabilities in the history of college football as a quarterback. It was just that Jeff Sims performance was truly the worst quarterback performance in history, and he never played again after it. He had three fumbles, 2 interceptions.
I think he had to walk back to Lincoln.
He couldn't do anything, but to go from that to hopefully.
Jeff, sorry about your ankle, but we're gonna take the bus back. You go ahead and
he
start walking.
And that was a big miss for Rule, and probably his like one big miss on the recruiting trail. But
I think the other, that is definitely the other big part of it. Like, you were mentioning the battles and stuff in our secondary, and then the battle between Rayola and Shador. The Tommy Hill versus Hunter has potential to be an elite matchup. I mean, that could be two NFL players just going, to battle there. I think that the way I would see us play defense, though, I don't know how much man coverage we're going to be going with. I mean, we'll see, but I think that the strategy to beat Colorado is just sick your D-line on them, send a few disguised blitzes and stuff here and there, and then drop into coverage and force them to try and pick you apart without getting sacked. On the other side of things, like if we do go man, like who is manning up Jimmy Horn? Like who is going to be that guy that steps up and locks down the other side of the field? And then Webster being a third option as well. We've got a good secondary. It's just not. I don't know that it's elite yet.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. The final key stat, I guess I would say, is we held them on third downs to 3 of 7 passing. Their QB rating was 38.29 with an interception on third downs as well. That's going to be a huge thing is can we just prevent them from being on the field? Can we get off of the field? We struggled with it a little bit last year. And I'm interested to see this year, can we put the pressure on and get off the field when we can? Like we were able to against UTEP. Yeah, that wasn't a problem, of course, but Colorado's a different beast.
Shout out to the 1,500 folks that are joining us live on the podcast on a Wednesday night. It's great to have you guys talk Husker football with a couple of degenerates that just love it. The over-under is 58.5. What do you think?
58.5. I mean, I like the knee-jerk reaction is over because that's I don't know.
It's 35-28.
35-28. I was going to say, I can see us putting up 30-plus points.
Yeah.
Colorado obviously can do the same. I don't like to think that we give up more than 24 this time around. I just think that I want to see us possess the ball and possess them to death so that they just don't even have the opportunity to have enough possessions. I think I would end up going over just because I saw what exactly happened last year, and our defense struggled to get off the field. They struggled to keep up with their receivers last year. If they get the ball too much, they're going to put points up. But their defense is such a freaking sieve that I think we're going to be. I think if you improve just a little bit at quarterback, everyone's putting up 30-plus points. They gave up 34.8 a game last year. Why wouldn't they do that this year?
So Vegas basically has them. So we're a 7.5 point favorite. Over under at 58.5. That basically has the score right around 35-24. That's us winning by 11, and that hits 59 on the overs. Or something similar to that, right? Like a 34-24, something like that hits just over the overs.
God, yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's a tough line, but because like we're saying, it could be maybe they don't score. I think they're going to score, and I think we're going to score. I think it's going to hit the over. I feel pretty confident in that. I just think we're going to if we had a breakdown against UTEP, we're going to have a breakdown against them. But I think we're going to score. If Colorado State could score that many points by just grinding and pounding the ball. Like,
Yeah.
there's 26 points on just running the ball up the middle, and we should be able to do some damage. Let's final segment here.
Yeah.
We're going to the game, obviously.
Oh, buddy. I can't even believe it's here.
So let's talk about food strategy, overall game day strategy. We're tailgating. Typical tradition. We an hour before the game, we go meet up with the band. They wait for us there, and we march in with the band down 10th Street. One of the greatest traditions in all football, the pride of all Nebraska, and make it into the stadium. So what food are you hitting first? What's your? It's a 6:30 game. How are you thinking about each quarter of food, drink?
It's all mapped out. It's all mapped out. I mean, you gotta hit food early and often. Take a little break, maybe get some beverages in replacement, and then every quarter we gotta hit something different. Just because if you have fewer opportunities to go, you just gotta hit every single stand that you've been missing.
Well, so where do you start? What's your first quarter? What do you walk into the stadium? What are you getting?
Yeah, it's vowels off the bat.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, it's you got to get it while it's hot. You got to get it while the cheese is melted. You don't want to delay that one too long. You got to get a fresh one. You got to get a kid that just left the concession stand. If they leave the stand with a fresh refill, I mean, you're just going to want to flag them down, make eye contact, make sure you get them over there. You say, I'm going to need a melted cheese one right now.
Extra cheese on the side, please.
Yeah, you want the bonus flap cheese. That's huge. If you can get a little cheese that's cooked into the side of the cardboard so that you're peeling it off afterward, that's pretty huge. So we're starting with vowels. Second quarter is, kind of depends. It's a little bit of a situational offense here, but I think we're going. I think you got to go Runza. Yeah, just to kind of make sure that you get your up to date comparison head to head, vowels versus Runza.
Protein too.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Third quarter, I'm backing off the gas a little bit, but we're gonna get a popcorn. We gotta make sure we got nice locally grown, locally popped corn. And it's the Husker popcorn. It's so good. Oh my God, it's so salty and buttery. And then fourth quarter, the ultimate dream and the ultimate scenario is to catch a Fairbury hot dog.
Yeah, it's true.
Now there's not much guarantee there, but I'm going to be selling out a little bit. Yeah. I think I'm going to, I might be hitting the deck if I need to.
Out of the 400 games we've gone to, have you ever caught a hot dog?
Zero.
Okay. Well,
got my hands on one. Got my hand on one, but it was a floppy one. It kind of flopped right out.
When you get it, it's like basically like
skirted to the side.
It's basically just like the
bun is destroyed.
It's completely destroyed.
It's completely demolished. It just got
shot 200 yards in the air.
It just got shot out of a pressurized cannon.
No.
It fell into your hands. And then if I don't, I'll just settle for buying a Fairbury if I don't catch one this time.
All right.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I start vowels and then go into Runza. It depends how we're feeling. Like, it depends the stress level, really. I think that to me is like kind of a determining factor of, either I'm stress eating or joyfully, the Runza guy comes and you're like, hello, sir. Hello.
Come on down.
You come to my section,
Get on over here, pal.
He's like, hey, that'll be $6, and you give him like a 40, and you're like, keep it. Who cares?
This is the best. We're just having a blast out here.
But typically, I would say I probably wait till halftime to get the runs, but then definitely like sprinting up, bathroom, troughs. Are the troughs are still there, right? Or are those gone?
Troughs are still in, I think, for now.
Okay. Yeah, gotta find a trough.
They might be on their way out.
So I try to go sprint to bathroom, trough, circle around, Runza
time,
and then
like
kind of decompress. And that's where we make second half adjustments too. Obviously Dad's there, and we like to talk through like what we need to do in the second half to improve on. None of it makes it to the coaches or anything, but it's important for us to like sort of.
It's good for us to make the adjustments.
It's like, what do we got to do to improve in the second half? And then that type of strategy helps us before we get back to our seats.
I'm not really sure how they would know what to do otherwise. We have to know what to look for.
Here's the last question that we can finish this thing off with. A burning question across Husker Nation today is, should we win, which I believe we will. I believe that we will win. Do the fans storm the field?
God, no. No way. it's Colorado. They're a future 4-8 squad. It's just like disrespectful to our. I mean, I could see some people doing it.
Here's
Is it indicated? No.
Here's where I agree, because it'd be, I think it'd be embarrassing. People would probably laugh at us. And all of the blue bloods, like if you look at all the polls, it's very heavy. No, the counterpoint is folks like this Nebraska blue blood since 2016.
Yeah.
The seniors at Nebraska have not seen a really good win their entire Husker career. Right. So like their best win is maybe that Northwestern game that Frost had. That was sort of like the one, where we came back. So that's the only part of me where I'm like, let these kids have some fun. But I'm pretty much on the side of no, but I'm also like, I feel bad for these seniors that they haven't seen anything.
Like, let them lose.
They had like the worst 4-year run ever. It's like
just go storm O Street or something. I don't know. I could just feel that I can feel the post game reaction to storming the field, which would be something along the lines of, "Good Lord, what?"
Correct.
How far Nebraska's?
It's more like, I feel like it's more like it's like an emotional court storm, or their court storm. It's more a field storm of like this is like 10 years of frustration of not winning a big game since. What's like the biggest game we've won in the last 10 years? Like that Oregon game. I don't know.
Michigan State.
That was
great.
We were 3-0.
Riley, baby. Or Brandon Riley.
Brandon Riley. I don't know. I'm pretty much against it, but I'm also I can see the like.
I mean, here's the deal. I say this right now. I would be at midfield.
Yeah, I'm going midfield. It is a big.
I say it now.
It's a big jump.
Say, nah, but then I would be
the student
right
section,
in the middle.
Student section is like a 20-foot jump after you once you get down there. So that'll be a slight variable of. I don't know how they're gonna do that, but anyway, all right, folks. We got about 1,600 folks here. Thanks for listening to the HuskGuys podcast. What's your score prediction?
I think 35-24 sounds great. I'll take that.
Yeah, I was right.
Colorado to 24 is actually a little bit of a feat, and then I just think run the damn ball down their throats. I love the battle in the trenches. It's where this game's going to be won. And Rule knows it.
I'm closer to 35-14, but I just think there's something about it that I'm like, man, if everything comes together,
we can not lose this game.
We're not gonna lose.
We can we just
not gonna lose.
Not gonna happen.
Only
not
Huskers win.
Happen.
Our podcast next week is going to be the best podcast we've ever had. I can't wait.
Good.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening to the HuskGuys podcast.